Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brief overview of the Tacit Research Platform. So in this video, we'll be walking you through some of the main features you should be aware of. So let's get into it. First, we'll be logging in. And the first thing we will be doing is walking you through our onboarding, just so you can have a quick overview of how the platform looks and feels like. The first thing that we want you to do is obviously to create a research project. We'll be going into that in a second. First, let's see what are the options in creating a research project. The first one is to create a light, what we call a light research project. A light constitutes of collecting audio and video data, specifically using a in-browser link. What we do in that option is that we analyze facial coding, so the micro-expressions on your face that happen every millisecond, speech sentiment analysis, so not only what are you saying, but also the tone, the pitch, and the cadence of your voice. Eye tracking, so exactly where are you looking at on the screen? Is it the upper right corner? Is it somewhere in the middle? And also upper body movement. So am I leaning in? Am I slouching? Am I leaning back? All of that data. We also correlate that with what is happening on the screen. So you can always know what reactions are correlated to what stimuli that was on the screen. In order to do that, in the background, we use something called the lab streaming layer so that we can have specific timestamps and know exactly, although different data have different granularity, we can know exactly what was a part of what screen. After that, we have Pro. Pro is collecting granular biometric data via sleek wearables and a mobile phone. This specifically includes data such as EEG, so neuro data, ECG, so cardio data, and a range of other physiological information such as respiration rate, temperature, sleep data, activity over time, etc. For this, we can use simple devices such as the Oura Ring that I'm having here, but also devices like Muse Interaxon, devices like Polar, Whoop, etc. After that, we also have video. Video is analyzing audio and video data, but from publicly available data. So it's typically YouTube links that we import, and then we analyze everything that we analyze with the light. So that means facial coding, speech sentiment analysis, eye tracking, body movement. And we also analyze how does that impact the viewer or the listener. So do the reactions that are happening on the screen have the effect to the reactions of the viewer? And last but not the least, we have our feature called Tacit Templates. It's a handy new feature that allows you to essentially replicate and duplicate research data. So what does that mean? That means that you can see what other companies and other positions, especially if they are publicly available, are using, what they're using in terms of methodology, for example, to test user interface or to test a new ad template or to test something completely different like a physical stimuli. And then you can see what type of research design do they use. Do they use monadic? Do they use sequential? Do they use monadic sequential? How do they distribute stimuli? Is it randomized and balanced, or do they have a different approach? Essentially, it's the nitty-gritty of a research design, and it's in a handy template so that you can duplicate, get inspired, and also reproduce that data. A big problem in research is the data reproducible? And having templates which enable you to copy exactly what your colleagues have used really come in handy, so it can give you an overview of how easy it is to replicate the data and get the same results. This is how the templates look like. So you can see different testing templates for medical conferences, for testing quote flows, for insurance companies, for analyzing esports professionals, for comparing e-commerce flows against competition, etc., etc. And now we are done with the onboarding. So let's go ahead and let's first take a look at our quick demo. This may be heavy on the Wi-Fi signal, so apologies in advance. Let's wait a few moments until it loads. Okay, so now we can start tracking. Here you have a brief overview of how the demo looks like. Here we can see facial coding as it's happening in real time. We can also see speech sentiment analysis, which is a slightly slower and more granular metric. So you can see how this graph will get populated over time. We can also see different spots on my face. We use the FACS methodology where we locate different points on my face, which are correlated with the 46 muscles of our face and neck area. And here we can see how they move over time, so we can pinpoint them. We don't save any data, so this is purely live. And here we can see brief statistics on age, ethnicity, gender, glasses, yes or no. This is very important. Glasses, beard, anything that's on the face, it's very important because it has a slightly confusing element, or it covers a part of the face, so the data analysis is slightly less efficient. Then we have the speech to text analysis, which is currently in creation, so apologies for that, but essentially this is how it works. So we can go back from the demo and now show you how we can create a project. First, we click on creating a project. We already know what are the Lite, Pro, and different versions of the project, but for the pure purpose of a demo, let's try to create a Lite project. The first thing that we will do, we will write a title. So we can write testing demo. Then we have a URL suffix. This will essentially be our URL where our dashboard will be available. So when you want to share your research results with your colleagues, we don't want you to share anything and everything. Usually they only care about the dashboard and the results, which is why you can share the simple suffix. We can call it testing demo 123. Description, just a test. We can select time zone, start and end date. We can keep this fixed, and then we can also upload a generic image. So this works quite well, and then we can click on store. So now we created a project. Then we go to the settings. This is what we've seen already. To the respondents. This is quite an important element. The respondents is we will create unique codes based on how many respondents do we want to have in a given study. There's no limit to how many respondents we can have. So it can be a couple, but it can also be a couple of hundred. So let's put in 10 just for the purpose of a demo, but it can also be 100. Let's put here 10 and click store. And now what we have are unique app codes that are generated for that specific respondent. So because all data needs to be anonymized, we never know what's the end, was the identity of the respondent, but we can always track how many sessions and what's the status of that respondent going through the actual flow. When we want to test our flow, which will be important by the end of the video, we don't use the respondent code because that's when we generate a session and that will influence our final results. But instead we use the app code, which is available here. So we can just copy paste that to go through the flow. Here we have the events. Here is where really the magic happens. This is where the interesting things occur. Whether we want to have Q&A, whether we want to show an image, how long do we want to show an image? Is it a couple of seconds? Is it half a minute? Would we want to show a video, a group of photos? Would we want to have an open-ended question? We want to take them to a link. We want them to take a photo, or we want them to record a video. This is where we create these different elements. And just for the purpose of it, the question can be, how are you feeling? And then we can choose, the answer can be okay, or we can say a number from 1 to 5. Okay, and that can be our first question. After that, we can take them to a link. Please go to this website to evaluate the flow. Here we can put in Zara.com. Oh, actually, we need to a normal URL. So we can put in Zara.com. The button text can be take me to Zara.com. Store. Then we can ask them, please evaluate the website that you just visited. Store. And this alone is enough for a very simple user journey. But if we want to make it a bit more complex, then we can add another link, and it can be, just a second, it can be H&M. So please go to this website and evaluate. Store. Then we can also add which of the two websites did you prefer? And then we can open the answer editor, create a new set, website, Zara.com. We can add another one, which is H&M.com. Store that. Close the answer set, and then choose the answer H&M Zara.com. And now we have the event preview. Which of the two websites do you prefer? Store. And then we can ask a final question. Why did you prefer that website? Store it. But the beauty is that we can really influence on what's the priming effect. So we can add different routes. We can also edit different events, but we can also swap and choose them. So for example, we can choose to put H&M right after Zara, or for certain respondents, we can actually make it appear that H&M appears after Zara. Obviously, in a perfect research scenario, we would have those randomized and balanced so that we can avoid any priming effects among our representative sample that we recruited. And then we can also add which is the order of the questions. So let's, just for the purpose of this short demo, let's say that this works well for us. Here is where we can have more complex things like event rules. Now, what are event rules? We can add an event rule. The first one is benchmarking implicit versus explicit. Now, this is a very popular demand. What our clients often ask us is, can we benchmark what did they claim explicitly and how does that differ with what they felt implicitly? And this is where we can benchmark and choose these modules. The JAR events, as we call them, are just about right events. This is very important in sensory research, especially for consumer technical insights. So those of you that are into that will probably know why this feature is so relevant. But for the purpose of this short demo, we will not go into much depth. Essentially, with just about right, we are trying to explore how strong or weak the stimuli is. And in the majority of times, we want it to be just right. So we don't want it to be too mild, but we also don't want it to be too strong. And this can be a important criteria, whether we're doing something for design or something for taste, aroma, fragrance. This is where the just about right events come into play. Terminating session is if a respondent says, I don't know, or I am unable, or for example, between Zara and H&M, I prefer Zara, then we can terminate the session. But if they say H&M and H&M is the client or someone we want to explore and probe additionally on why do they prefer it, then we can add specific rules that only for the subset of those users, then we trigger a completely new line of questions that will happen. Redirecting, very similar, you have a conditional flow and the users are redirected to this flow based on the rules that you apply, and then also correct answers. Obviously, sometimes we have answers that are wrong and right, or correct and incorrect, and based on those, we can apply different rules. Respondent filters, the most common filters that we have are typically filters that deal with age, with income level, with education level, with any specific criteria. This is where we can create that filter and then use it later in the dashboard as a way to segment our results. So for example, this is how we look at discrepancies and differences. If we're testing Zara and H&M, are there any differences based on what is the level of education of our respondents, or based on are they male or female, or on a completely different set of filters and criteria. Personality tests, it's the International Personality Item Pool tests. We can include those. We also have different hard-coded personality tests. These are kind of self-explanatory. Sometimes in research, we require them as a standard set of questions, but in other times, they just may influence the flow as something that will in the end be too complex and too cumbersome, so sometimes we don't include them. Answer sets, we already touched on that. It's creating different specialized set of questions and answers. The most common ones are agree, disagree, 5 scale, the easy difficult scale, the fast slow scale, the emotion scale of intrigued, amused, interested, excited, bored, confused, frustrated, angry, and so on. So these are the most common ones, but obviously you can go ahead and create any questions that you want to have. Tags usually function for a group of events or group of stimuli that you have. And then sessions is where we can examine and explore raw data so you can inspect the quality. Sometimes what may happen, especially in more complex studies, is that you can go and you can generate large amounts of data, but some files may be either corrupted or done in a bad fashion, or sometimes even the system cannot recognize it. And I can give you a classical example of where that happened. We did a study for a very big production house, and one of their main requests is that we analyze people, professionally recruited and compensated people that gave us explicit consent when they're looking at videos at home on their laptop in their bed, usually in dark. Now, the interesting bit is that you get really high quality authentic data, but the problematic bit is that it was in very poor light conditions, and oftentimes people would just move around the bed or move the camera in a way that doesn't cover them. And the way that we would go about it in terms of the analyzing the quality of the individual sessions is that we would go into sessions and really inspect the individual quality of the sessions. So now let's go to the respondent. Let's take our app code. Let's copy paste it, go to platform home, and let's start a session. Here we start session by inserting our code, and here we have the name of our test, start session. How are you feeling today from 1 to 5? I'm feeling like a 4, submit. Please go to this website and evaluate the flow, take me to H&M. For the purpose of this video, I will not be inspecting it. Okay, please go to this website and evaluate the flow. take me to Zara.com, please take me to Zara.com. Again, now this is Zara. For the purpose of this video, I won't be going into detail. Proceed, please evaluate the website that you just visited. It was great. Which of the two websites did you prefer? I'm more of a H&M type of person. Why did you prefer that website? Brand. Actually, I like the brand more. Submit. Post any comment about your session or experience. Not now. That's it. So with doing this, we actually went through the entire research flow, but without generating any data. And now we can go through the session and generate the data. So let's do it once again. Let's go to my projects. Let's go to the final demo. Okay, respondents. Let's take this respondent. Session. Okay, now the system is requesting me to share the permission. I will share the entire screen. Okay, permission is denied. Let's see why that is so. Let's try to do it like this. I'll try to do it here. Okay. So now let's start the session. So I gave permissions, feeling like 4 still. Submit, take me to H&M. Again, take me to Zara. Take me to Zara. Proceed. It was okay. Submit, I prefer H&M. Better brand. Submit, not now. Okay, so now let's go back to this one. If we go back to my projects, if now we see, let's go to the respondents, we can see that this respondent, the respondent number 1, has in fact completed and started the session. Maybe we don't want the other respondents, we can delete them. We can delete the other codes. Yes. Yes. Let's do this. So after we did just that, we'll go ahead and see our dashboard. So this is quite a simple dashboard. Obviously, we just have one session, but we had a little bit of a high here. We can click on it, we can open the snapshot, and we can see exactly the 5 seconds during and after what was happening here. And we can see what were the results, and we can open up the session detail, and then we can really explore the surprise the discussed, we can go to the discussed, we can see it was here. We can toggle the video and we can really see how it all looked like. Where was I watching on the screen and how did this entire flow go about? We can also download the raw data of this entire session by clicking on downloading. And we can inspect all the data in CSV files. Here we can also see the questions and answers and also the average response time in millisecond precision. And we can see, in this case, aggregated facial emotion data, but if this was a pro project, we can see much, much more. And if this was a more complex project, we would see much more. Now, this is how a light project looks like. Obviously, Pro looks exactly the same, but it only has more granular data. And here we can also see, for example, in this case, image emotion, we can upload a photo and then analyze emotions that are happening on the screen. So we can see exactly, for example, disgust, anger, surprise, but also attention, jaw drop, eye widen, all of the other metrics that are relevant for this type of research. In this case, the third-party devices, I have my Aura and Whooped synced, and I also have the options to invite a collaborator using a secure link. So I can invite a colleague of mine to participate in a research project with me. So this would be all from the first video of the tour of our research platform. I hope you like it. And please reach out to our email if you have any questions or if you want to schedule a demo to have a tour yourself. Thank you.